Lochindorb is a freshwater loch north of Grantown-on-Spey. This loch is home to the ruins of Lochindorb Castle, a former stronghold of the Clan Comyn, and is built on what is now said to be an artificially created island. The loch is home to an array of wildlife and is a popular fishing and bird-watching spot. The loch was traditionally a game loch with a large native brown trout population. However, there has been a dramatic decrease in numbers since the illegal introduction of pike to the loch. The castle is located on the bleak Dava Moor south of Nairn and Forres on the way to Grantown-on-Spey and Aviemore, in the southeastern heart of the Scottish Highlands. It sits on a partly man-made island in this remote loch, 6.5 miles northwest of Grantown-on-Spey, and is not accessible by public transport, so you'll need a car or bike, or be prepared for a long walk, and then of course a boat if you want to go across. The best time to visit is when the heather is in bloom and the moor is a carpet of purple. The castle has certainly had its fair share of drama. Dating back to the 13th century, it was originally held by the Comyns but later occupied by the English, and was visited by Edward I in 1303 when he stayed here for 9 days hunting out on the moor. Later it was used as a prison and also as a garrison for English troops. At the end of the 14th century it was gifted by Robert II to his third son, the notorious Wolf of Badenoch, Alexander Stewart, who rampaged around quite a bit of the local area. Lochindorb was said to be his favourite haunt. When the Scottish Privy Council instructed the Thane of Cawdor to dismantle Lochindorb after it had been forfeited by the Earl of Moray in around 1455, the huge iron yett was transported to Cawdor Castle and can now be seen in the bowels of the building. Although now in ruins, the castle was still fairly good condition up to the end of the 18th century, when its 4 7-metre high round towers were intact. The main quadrangle courtyard is 48 by 38 metres and is enclosed by a 2-metre thick wall which stands 6 metres high. A later extension to the south was made probably to give the island extra protection from assault. Apparently it was bought by the Cawdor Campbells in the 1970s. Historians have asserted that the site of Lochindorb Castle was initially a crannog or fortified retreat. So here we're going to dip into some of that history. In 1236 King Alexander II chose the area as his hunting domain, which they called the Forest of Leisneck and Braemore at the time. In 1260 to 1280 the Comyns of Badenoch were the first recorded owners of Lochindorb Castle. 1300, historical records refer to the death of Black John Comyn, who died at the castle in 1300, Bruce slew Black John's son at Dumfries. In 1303, Edward I of England returned from Flanders to defeat Wallace and invade Scotland. He took up residence in Lochindorb Castle. Edward Longshanks enforced draconian conditions as he forced the North Kingdoms to submit to his rule. Inverness, Nairn, Forres and Elgin surrendered to his forces, and after a lengthy siege, Castle Urquhart surrendered to King Edward. 1303 to 1306, and historians speculate Edward I entirely rebuilt or made extensive modifications to the castle. The irregular shape and curtain walls and towers that were bell-shaped at the base show strong Edwardian architectural influences. One of the last surviving Scottish yetts or iron gate of Lochindorb Castle remains in Cawdor Castle to this day. 1326. The grandson of Black John reclaimed the castle until his death, marking the end of the direct line of one of the most potent Scottish families. 1335. Sir Andrew Moray laid siege to Lochindorb. A civil war was at its peak, with the rival claims between David Bruce and Edward Balliol to Scotland's throne. The Earl of Atholl was slain while laying siege to Kildrummie and the seat of the Christian Bruce. The Earl of Atholl's wife fled to Lochindorb, which was then under siege by Moray for 7 months. In 1336, King Edward came to the castle with 500 horsemen and had no success in his attempt to crush Moray. Moray escaped through the surrounding forest, and legend states that Moray would not be hurried when the army approached, and instead calmly finished his repairs and had part of his armour repaired before fleeing. In 1342, the castle was the scene for the imprisonment and death of William Bullock, the turncoat once chamberlain of Balliol. When he fell out of favour, they imprisoned him in the water pit dungeon of Lochindorb, where he died of cold and hunger. 1342 to 1367. For 25 years, Lochindorb functioned as a state prison until 1367, when David II granted the castle to Simon Reed, Constable of Edinburgh Castle. 1370. King Robert II granted the lands and forest of Badenoch to his son Alexander, Earl of Buchan. This fierce and evil man was named the Wolf of Badenoch. The wolf had bitter dealings with the church and often seized wealth of Moray and Badenoch's churchmen. After excommunication, the wolf burned down the cathedral church of Elgin. In 1455, Archibald Douglas heavily fortified the castle and then broke into open rebellion against the king. The family was accused of treason by fortifying and forming a garrison in the castle against the king. The Douglas clan suffered defeat at Arkinholm, and the castle and lands fell forfeit to the crown. Royal orders stated that the castle was to be dismantled due to its situation and power. The Thane of Cawdor undertook the control of the dismantling of Lochindorb, and the castle remains the property of the Cawdor estate. 1612. John Grant of Frenchy exchanged lands in Gledlivet and Strathaven, and for land in Abernathy and Inverallen, including the castle. 1950, Lochindorb is declared a scheduled monument. The classification designated is that the castle, medieval, human remains, period unassigned. And that is just a brief dip into the history of this marvellous place. Thank you for watching Desmond's Dongers. And remember, while in the countryside, indeed anywhere, take nothing but memories and leave nothing but tracks. Please subscribe and click that notification bell to receive notifications of all our videos.